Nick Fuentes went on Candace Owens' podcast, which is crazy because he's slowly been gaining traction over this past year. And Candace is probably the most mainstream political pundit that he has had an opportunity to go on their platform. And boy, this interview, it was about a 2-hour interview, and I watched the whole thing today and was really proud of Nick because it felt like Candace at the beginning of the conversation was saying how she wanted it to be just a good old-fashioned conversation. And throughout the interview, what I kind of got is she started to interrogate him. She started to interrogate him on, understandably so, his views on race. But then she started to grill him for not having a family and not dating. And she started to grill him over his personal life and everything like that. And it kind of felt like a little bit hostile. And when he kind of went back at her and just was very cordial, it was a cordial interview. But when there was any sign of kind of pushback, she's like, hey, I thought this was just a conversation. And she's a little bit crazy too, but this was very interesting. So we'll play a couple of clips, and then I'll really talk about like what I felt about the interview, and then where Nick goes from here and where Candace goes from here. But this is Nick and Candace talking about IQ. And it's very interesting. So we'll play this one clip.
So you don't think that there's group differences on average between the races?
I think, and just to be clear, I think there would be group differences if you took it, like we were talking about, an American versus somebody who graduates college in Europe. There would be tremendous differences.
Not tremendous, but yeah, there would be slight differences, but you don't think that racially there's differences between races?
I think, yeah, because we have huge differences culturally. So going to your point of saying, I don't want to live in a black neighborhood, well, neither does LeBron James when he gets money, right? And there's a reason for that, because there is something that's happening culturally in Black America that's been going on for a very long time. But that thing, I would argue, didn't exist in...
What about in Africa and Haiti? I mean, they're killing and eating each other in Africa and Haiti. Everywhere where they are, you have these problems.
Yeah, I'd like to look into, and I'm pleading ignorant, but I've heard some things about what happened in Haiti and what the Clinton Foundation did there. So I think I'd have to look more into the history of Haiti to be able to push back on that at all.
And so he makes a point about IQ. And listen, whatever you think about Nick Fuentes, I'm not going to endorse anything, but I am a fan. Definitely a fan of Nick, a lesser fan of Candace, but still a fan as well. And she really didn't have anything to say for his point about IQ and how IQ definitely does matter and how race could potentially matter. She never had an answer for his argument, and it was very interesting to see. He was talking about, too, how he wants to have kids and grandkids that look like him, to be white. And he said he could understand how Candace would want to have kids that are black, even though she's in an interracial marriage, she's married to a white guy. And she could not put herself in his shoes and understand why he wanted to have kids that looked like him, which was kind of interesting. And that was the whole thing on the IQ. And for whatever reason, she couldn't put herself in his shoes. And so that was just one clip, and I want to be really selective on what I play because that stuff did get copyrighted. So there is that. But it was just an amazing interview. Something else that she did try to corner Nick on, which I think he can improve on it, is how he goes at people. He kind of told her his whole life story, and just up until when he was 18, up until now, and was continuing to tell her how he was censored and blocked and how he had to resort to live streaming on Cozy TV and how like everybody hated him, and she kind of dissected everything that he said and was able to kind of humanize him a little bit, but also say, hey, listen, like, I didn't know that you were being canceled like this. I would have spoken out for you. And a part of it, the interview, was her and him going back and forth, saying, you know, you never really had me on the show, even though you said, and she would kind of fact check him. Whether or not those fact checks had any basis is up to interpretation. Kind of like a he said, she said. But what I was very disappointed about in this interview, there were some interesting topics. It was mostly about Candace and what she thought about Nick and Nick's upbringing and stuff like that and how he got to where he is now. What I really did wish they talked about is Trump and his policies and his kind of failure in the first 6 months of his administration, but also to the war in Iran with Israel. And we didn't get any of that. And Nick's coverage of Iran, of the Iran-Israel war, the 12-day war, was fantastic. The best political commentary on the topic that I saw. And I sought it out. I wanted to learn more and more about potentially World War III. And he just broke everything down so in depth. And he was providing all this information about Iran and their centrifuges and Natanz and Fordo, and how Fordo is 20 stories underground. And the only military, the only Air Force that has the bombs and the missiles to be able to penetrate Fordo is the United States. And continuing on, he was talking about how Iran, they don't have any nukes because it's literally against Islamic doctrine to have those weapons. And just providing knowledge that you really can't find anywhere else. And he gained a lot of subscribers. The views, the live viewership was crazy. Just analyzing Nick Fuentes as a political figure. And the best coverage. And they didn't talk about it at all. And so that was definitely disappointing. But it felt like Candace was more so trying to get at Nick with gotcha questions, it felt like. Still an entertaining interview. I like to see Nick be platformed by more people. I would love to see him get a Ben Shapiro interview or a Jordan Peterson interview where they debate each other. But it probably won't happen, although he is gaining traction. I continue to follow him. He's more and more popular each day, and his ideas are very fascinating. But this is a liberal podcast. I believe this is Pod Save the World. And this is a clip of somebody on Pod Save the World. I don't even know who this is. But he's talking about Nick Fuentes, and they're kind of like fear-mongering a little bit about his ideas becoming mainstream. So listen to this.
I watched the other night like a 2-hour
You're an enthusiast.
Dude, you're not ready for how fucked up this is. I watched a 2-hour debate hosted by Alex Jones on InfoWars between Dinesh D'Souza and Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes, for those that don't know, is this 26-year-old young guy, like straight up anti-Semite, neo-Nazi, like really, really bad, scary dude. But my takeaway from watching this, first of all, it was incredibly, like, it was not an ugly debate. It was very history focused and substantive, and like they treated each other respectfully. And the scary thing I took away from it was that Nick Fuentes, despite having like vile extreme views, can be really compelling and convincing sounding. And I think when someone like seems like they know their history, it seems like they're rational and reasonable, suddenly it's a lot easier for them to launder like deeply anti-Semitic, fucked up views kind of like into the mainstream. And I think that like when people like Charlie Kirk and other kind of more, they're not like mainstream Republicans, they're mainstream MAGA type influencers type, like kind of look out at the landscape, at the competition. It is that fringe far right that is the problem. It is not the kind of, normie Dems who are left over in Washington.
And so I will provide a brief prediction and then we'll be done. Yeah, they should be scared because their left-wing Gen Z voting bloc it's not happening. Gen Z is very much right-wing and becoming more radicalized each day because we have all the access to the information on the internet that the boomers, that Gen X doesn't have, that millennials don't seem to care about. And so, yeah, the more people notice with everything, the more of Nick Fuentes' ideas are going to populate. So, there's that. But I will say that Dinesh D'Souza debate with Alex Jones, it was interesting, but I feel like they never really got anywhere, and Dinesh accused Fuentes of being a Democrat based off of all his beliefs, and so I watched it, but I really wasn't entertained. It wasn't, nobody really won the argument, I would say. Nick was civil, but nobody really won the argument, in my opinion, but it was cool. It's cool to see Nick get more platform from these mainstream people. And like I said, I would love to see a Ben Shapiro, a Jordan Peterson, even a Charlie Kirk debate. But I don't think that their ideas will have any legs. So there's that. But it's been a great podcast. Once again, I appreciate you guys. If you give the channel a sub, give the video a like, a comment. if two, which is cool. We're finally monetized. So congratulations to you. Thank you all. We appreciate you. Shide appreciates you in the new studio officially. And yeah, we're doing membership, so it's probably going to be active. If not, we'll reinstate it. But for 99 cents a month, you could support the show. As low as 99 cents a month, you could support the show. It's going to go to better equipment, better quality, better everything. So starting at 99 cents a month and up, you could support the show with memberships. And we will have merch soon. So I appreciate you guys, and we will see you.